14 inches tall, not super tall. 3 of these I can get up between 18 and 21 feet, depending on how I space them out.
I thought to myself, how about a bipod system that doesn't live on my rifle, but it can when I want it to, and I don't have to twist a knob, bop it, or pull it.
What is up, everybody? Mark on the mic, Mr. Ryan Muckenhirn to my right, and across from us, Mr. Erik Barber, a.k.a. Slingin' Rick with the wave. Guys, speaking of waves, we've got a wave of new gear that we've been using this year, stuff we're stupid
about.
You know what?
We are stupid about it. I'm stupid about it.
Yeah.
I am. I'm stupid about all these things.
If I'm stupid, you're stupid. Or if you're stupid, I'm stupid. If I'm a bird, you're a bird.
Well, then we might be in trouble. Welcome, everybody, to our Gear in Review. Erik, you were just saying this is one of your favorite episodes.
Yes.
I think this is our third. Your third as well,
yeah,
right?
Definitely.
So you're a vet of these. Ryan, you are as well. We got the band together. We're light a couple folks today. We were missing the tactical / shooting component of this one. And then we said to ourselves, that's fine because we'll cover the hunt side.
Do it again.
And then if you guys want, let us know in the comments. I'm mentioning this early. We're going to do a double Gear in Review, round 2, with to cover kind of those other very important categories. Yes. Erik, you've been pretty jacked up about this one.
I'm so jacked up.
How much coffee have you had this morning?
Twice.
That's it.
Mm-hmm.
So your stoke level is essentially, it's purely on.
Yeah, this is genuine excitement. I'm ready to go.
Okay. Man, let's start. I want to hear what you got.
Okay. I am, no secret, I always am talking about whitetail hunting whenever I'm on the have the pleasure.
You're a big whitetail guy?
Big whitetail guy.
Oh.
What do they look like?
They're like a rabbit with antlers.
Well, Rick's whitetails have a distinct tendency to look different than my whitetails.
Yes.
I've never met somebody as proficient at killing large deer consistently as jacked Erik Barber.
I appreciate that, Ryan. Thank you.
It's like during rut, Rick posts on Instagram Saturday morning, Sunday morning. It's usually like, found this giant deer, shot him with my bow.
And it was a good day.
Yeah.
You do have an innate ability to close, to get in a situation and, maybe that deer, maybe it happens that day, maybe it happens, following that, but you've got an innate ability to close. And I appreciate that about you.
I'll say this
it's
too
a lot
about
of stubbornness.
Our friend Erik. He is also not afraid to let fly on a basket rack deer.
100%.
Gets him jacked, he just kills it.
Absolutely.
God,
when the excitement fades, it's time to stop, and that's not happening anytime soon.
Oh, you get excited?
Yeah. Anyways, something I'm also very excited about is the new Lonewolf Custom Gear V2 double sticks. So I've spent a ton of time testing a bunch of different climbing sticks, a bunch of different platforms, and this year I kind of sought out to give myself a little bit more space in my backpack and eliminate things.
Okay.
So by eliminating things, I was looking to just pare down the amount of things that I had in my backpack. I run I should have brought it in, but I use a Kifaru Striker XL.
Yeah.
And I've always in the past put my platform and my climbing sticks inside that pack. So basically that it's a frame pack, but the exterior pocket just unclips from the top, and it essentially serves as like a meat shelf for you to throw in like a load of meat, extra layers, climbing sticks, a platform, all that stuff. And I was just using that. But the problem that I was kind of trying to solve was I was putting like my climbing sticks in that space, and realized that I was taking up a lot of space just with my climbing sticks and my backpack, and my climbing sticks and my platform.
Okay. Yep.
Meaning that if I wanted to bring in extra layers, I was relegated to only the zippered pouch of the backpack, when I would like to rather, especially for like an all-day sit during the rut, put food, water, snacks, grunt collar, antlers, all the things in that pocket, right?
Yep. All the things to survive the day.
Yes. So what Ryan is holding right now is what I think to be the most, it's not necessarily the lightest, but it is the most solidly packed system of climbing sticks and platform on the market today.
It ain't heavy, buddy.
It's not heavy.
Do you have a
the
total
form
weight on that?
factor.
Yes. So these climbing sticks here, I'm going to start to kind of unpack here. So what you're looking at on the table is the V2 doubles, which these are a 14-inch climbing stick. They weigh in at 15 ounces.
Light.
Very light. They're the lightest climbing stick on the market.
Alloy, by the way.
Yep. What makes them incredibly cool is their packed profile. By that, I mean once they are stacked, they nest together really nicely, and their total stacked height is, hang on here, give me a sec. It's like an inch-ish.
Well, not counting the studs.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking of the 3 different styles of climbing sticks that I own.
Yep.
The lightest ones, the 4 sticks, which gets me less height than your configuration because you've got 8ers on all 3.
Yes.
My 4 sticks weigh more than this entire package.
For sure.
Dang.
So,
I mean, it's not so much the weight. It is the form factor.
The form factor
of
is nothing.
Of that entire package together is...
It's very minimalistic. So I found myself using 4 climbing sticks all the time. And then, oftentimes I would bring in 4 and I would use 3.
Yep.
I would bring in 4, I would use 2. Rarely did I find myself going 4 sticks up. So I figured I'm going to eliminate the need for a 4th stick. Add 8ers, cable 8ers. What's really cool about these Lonewolf cable 8ers is, let me just pull this thing off here. Yeah, I'll get to those too.
Ricky, I got all kinds of questions.
So what's cool about these cable 8ers is once the stick is on the tree and your 8ers fold down, the 8ers pop out from the tree. So if you picture the tree going like this, you don't have to search for the 8er in the dark. Mm-hmm. That's huge. Obviously, the total height of that stick is like nothing. It's like a 1/4-inch material there. And then I made a couple modifications to these. So the strap system is really cool. I like that you kind of loop around the climbing stick, the top and the bottom rung of the stick. Standard, they come with a Velcro, piece of Velcro to essentially keep this part from sliding up and down. But that wasn't tensioned to anything, so I bought a couple cheap little bungee cords at Walmart, and I undid the bungee part of the cord, like the clip, and I just tied it together. So that allows me then to go around the stick as many times as I need to, and then I cut the length of the bungee perfect so that I can just go right over the end.
Yep.
No, that's not going anywhere.
I like that a lot. And it's quiet. It's all
super
the things.
Quiet. Yep. So these sticks weigh in at 14, 15 ounces. Cable 8er obviously adds a couple ounces. 14 inches tall, not super tall. 3 of these I can get up between 18 and 21 feet depending on how I space them out. And that is more than enough for me. Mm-hmm. Why I like these things so much is they are not for everyone. What I mean by that is these are definitely for someone that is looking to put a precedence on minimalistic form factor, reducing clutter. If you're someone that, and I fall into this camp too, I've got a permission on a piece of private, and if I'm just going in 100 yards off the road, I might be looking for a different stick, but this is truly a stick that'll do it for every application out there. Run and gun, regardless of distance. But what they kind of sought out to solve with this thing was a very minimalistic stick and an ultralight packed profile that then nests together with your platform. We'll get into that too.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Species of trees that you've climbed with this?
Yep.
I know when you had alluded to these earlier in the year, and I don't whitetail hunt. I want to make that very clear. I go out with Mark, and then I'll go out during the holiday doe season. But I like gear, and I think of a couple of hunts, not for whitetails, interestingly enough, where this is the solution. And I started doing that when I got my first saddle some time ago and got into climbing. Have you climbed anything really slippery with it?
So, northern Wisconsin this year climbed a couple birch trees.
Thank you.
Okay.
And those are incredibly slick.
Yeah.
So and these things actually performed awesome on it. I was hesitant, but I think what made them perform well was, so these sticks, I'm not going to be able to do it now, but like when you get these things on a tree and you're really biting it down, so basically the strap will, like, you'll figure 8 around these wings, and then once you like lock the stick in, it tensions up on the tree. The stick will actually bend.
Sure.
You'll see, like, yes, exactly. That
It
is
just kind of flexes.
It flexes to fit the form of the tree. So if you had a very rigid stick, something that had no flex in it, no give whatsoever, and I've hunted up in northern Wisconsin my whole life. I remember going up there using like a Summit climber, and this is not a knock on Summit at all, but like climbing up some of those birch trees, like you had a little bit of screeching, a little bit of like slipperiness,
A little bit of sketch factor.
a little bit of sketch. These things bite those birch trees super solid because of how they kind of like contort to the contour of the tree.
Sure. Something I'm noticing now where I didn't earlier, the entire top of the stick is a step, where on 2 of the examples I have, it is not. Yeah. I have a small post, and I have large, wide feet, and I was hunting northern Minnesota for black bear and climbing birch trees because there's nothing else up there except the occasional white cedar. I had a very small footprint where I could put my boot, and then I'm on a slippery tree. That whole top step is a step.
Absolutely.
That's pretty nifty.
The other cool thing too, on other trees, so like white oaks, very common throughout a lot of the whitetail range. I mean, those are probably the most forgiving tree to climb.
Sure.
These things, like, they really bite into those things.
Yeah.
When I'm taking off the straps, like the strap is off the tree and these things are still like sticking kind of into the bark.
So you had mentioned something, and I'm noticing this. There's no tension lock on your strap.
Correct.
Is it a total pain in the booty to unstrap that thing and kind of show me?
Nope, not at all.
And if anybody, take it from somebody who doesn't hunt whitetail deer but loves good gear, these guys have the system figured out.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the cross-compatibility with various parts of their system is spectacular because they, I think, understand that not every platform is for every person. Not every set of sticks is for every person. The majority of their stuff cross-pollinates.
Absolutely.
And you still end up with this super buttoned-up ecosystem that is the grab-and-go design. And
Totally.
It's fantastic.
Well, and you can mix, like you said, there's something for everybody, and you can mix and match and build your kit.
Yeah.
Truly customized to how you like to hunt.
Yeah, so I have their 0.5 hang-on, and I've ran these on that, and that stand weighs in at like, it's sub 10 pounds. It might be like 6 pounds. Don't quote me on that. It's a very, very light hang-on. When you put these 3 sticks onto that stand, they actually, and we'll get to this platform, they nest the same way onto this platform as they do the stand. Your stand essentially functions as a backpack when you're going to and from. And, there is no profile of these things hanging off that, which is really, really slick. But yeah, so to put these things on the tree, if I had a tree in front of me, I would hang this first stick probably about like where the top rung would be just below my chin.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
So, and then you'll go around the tree to hang that. I always go around like this.
Oh, Ricky got some long legs.
Grab the strap or the stick, retain the strap in my left hand. You always cross, right? So like here I've got the strap on the left side of the stick. So I'm going to go around this way. That way I can then cross it and then figure 8 around like so.
So single wrap, and then you take your excess up on that kind of excuse me, on that T-bone portion
Yep.
of there. Okay.
Yep. And then I'll take that tag end once I have it wrapped up, and I'll put it just like in between the
Sure.
posts,
Oh, sure,
just
right.
so it's
Out
not
of the
getting
way.
in the way.
Yeah.
Kind of
Exactly.
retains it closer to the tree there. It's not blowing around or
Yep.
getting hung up on you as you go up and down. Or,
Yep. Go ahead.
It's going to be pretty difficult to find a more secure system without using a ratcheting type
Totally.
thing. Yep.
Yep. And then, the other thing too, when I when Cody first kind of walked me through the process of, he's like, hey, hang that stick higher than you think. He's like, put it at, like just below your chin. And so I went to their mobile road show this year where he was kind of talking through that. I'm like, I need you to like show me this. So they've got a tree out in the back where they kind of like do gear demos and stuff like that. And Cody's a shorter guy, and he put that stick right even with his chin. And then using your lineman's belt, you go around the tree, right? So you're now connected to the tree. Your feet are still on the ground. You grab the bottom rung or the top rung, wherever whatever gives you the most leverage and whatever you're most comfortable for. So your aider might be like, 4 feet off the ground, too high to just step into it. So what you do, because you have your lineman's belt around the tree and you're grabbing onto the stick, you essentially do a little chin up. You put your right foot into the base of the tree, because you're using your lineman's belt as leverage, and then you step your left foot into the aider, and then you're up on the stick. So you can space these things super far apart. So I found even 2 of these things, I'm getting up to 12 feet, no problem.
That's so wild.
That is
Yeah.
Because when you look at when you're
insane.
holding them, the stick doesn't look much longer than about 14 inches.
Yeah, there's nothing to it.
Span. And that speaks to the utility of the aider too. And it's been interesting to see those evolve from simple nylon rope with garden hose in them to what this is a plasticized cable, steel cable.
I mean, I like that. It's a more rigid open loop, and I really like the dual attachment points that keep that loop open.
That's huge, because a lot of times you'll see like a nylon aider that just cinches like almost like a Prusik knot to the base of the stick, and then that thing just hangs so straight down.
You got to fish it open and get your
doing that in the dark is impossible. These things,
It's a safety thing too.
Yep, absolutely. Then once you're, kind of tearing your setup down, you'll notice on the bottom of the sticks, the bottom and the top, there are these grooves intentionally cut out. So like right here. So you always go down first. See how that kind of like stays in that keeper? Up over the top, back down. Back over the top, down one more time. And up one, and then this is where that little modification that I threw in, the bungee, comes in. So now I'll just pull that down and get that right over the end of the stick, and then it stays.
Presto.
So a question I had when I saw this tidy little package show up.
How hard is it to put back into this?
And I just saw.
And it's nothing. So then, once you're ready to go, you just take these, you'll notice these little like nylon pieces. So that's what it's nesting into right there. Down it goes into the bottom. Like so. Down it goes into the top. Then you take your Velcro. You would obviously repeat that process for all of them. Go like that. Imagine all of these aiders like they are right now up on top. Just fold right underneath,
Golly.
out of the way. And then to grab it and go, you'll see a couple of these posts are intentionally longer. They go into these sleeves on your platform.
Gotcha.
There's a groove.
So the order, like you want that one on the bottom?
On the bottom.
Okay.
Yep.
Do you mark it, or have you just practiced with this enough that you know it's the one?
I have it marked by the fact that it is the only one that has the Velcro keeper through it.
Understood.
So I always know that that's my bottom.
Gotcha.
And then I alternate. So I go strap on the left, strap on the right, strap on the left.
Understood.
So really it always goes back the same way.
And I ran into when I
Does alternating those straps keep them tighter together?
It
Then
does.
you're not kind of building on. Okay.
Yep.
it's a system that you do have to put together and take apart a couple of times. to get a hand for it. And I'd never climbed a tree with like a saddle system before. I had obviously gotten a saddle, and so it was a little bit on the goofy side, but then got the hang of it, and now it's funny how fast you can run up a tree. Yeah. If you want to get up it like right now.
Absolutely.
That's pretty nifty.
And I think that is the biggest advantage to running a saddle setup.
Sure.
Is it is like, I'll find myself. This year it was first week in November. I got down. I was hunting a private piece that I have access to, not seeing hardly anything. Got down. I was going to go sit on this piece of public for like 2 hours in the midday because I knew it was nothing for me to get in and out of there,
Sure.
So you just have that freedom to kind of like truly run and gun, almost like you would for turkeys, and grab and go. The platform, so that is this is the Fix Saddle Hunter platform. This is the smaller of the two that they offer. So it is made from the same material that their tree stands are and has essentially the exact same functionality in regards to these little like keepers, which I think are so sweet how they keep that. That's where your sticks go.
Yep.
Oh.
So you'll see like I have hockey tape.
Yeah.
In there, and then the posts on my stick are hockey taped. And that's just so, like, when I do have metal on metal contact, I don't produce any sound. The platform is very aggressive, bites the tree really well.
I see that.
When you cam this thing over, like on those birch trees, it's not going anywhere, which might sound on the surface just like, okay, that's kind of like all frills, no function, because, like, what I found to be huge with this is when you want to try to execute like a weak side shot with your bow, you essentially, end up, you go through your bridge, you rotate 90 degrees in the tree. So now rather than facing the tree, your feet are facing out on, you're 180 degrees from the tree, essentially using your platform like you would a tree stand.
Right.
So having something that bites really, really hard is so advantageous because like, hey, you're kind of at a funky angle. You don't have to worry about this thing flexing or moving at all. Like it is rock solid. So
also take it from somebody who's done some aerial acrobatics out of a saddle. And actually that wasn't even the fault of the stand. That was more the tree. I was in a green ash and the bark completely degloved from the tree. My saddle kicked out and then dropped down like 12 inches, and then I was sitting there swinging. And then I fished my platform back up and kind of got it tight. It was a great night to watch deer exactly the spot where I knew they'd come out, and I couldn't reach my bow. So that was great.
Yep, those are the games we play.
So your mode of operation here is you lift up we'll call it the top portion of this. And that is presented to the tree first. You then run your strap, tension, and then you cam the platform down into the tree.
Exactly.
Okay.
And you got to be careful. Like it's kind of a game of adjusting how. Like what I found because the bottom bite is so aggressive. If I would go up to a true 90 degrees like parallel to the tree, I would end up like. It'd be almost impossible for me to cam this thing over. So I would be camming it over when it's about like that, put it on the tree at that angle, then really bite it down with camming your strap over. And then that system, it's not really going anywhere.
That sucker is going to be tight. And then this is super simple. It's super self-explanatory.
But it's very cool.
Yeah.
So package up your platform, fold down your post. You take your sticks. There's one way that these go. So if you're looking here, they're thinner this way than they are that way. That conveniently is the same dimension as right here.
Would you look at that?
So your bottom posts, again, go into those keepers, just like so. You don't hear anything. Back goes into the bracket on the tree or on the platform. You take these tag ends, and there are wings inside the platform.
This is so fun because it's like one of them puzzles where you see, like a picture where you see more things coming to life as I'm watching you do this.
So then that goes through that way.
You lost your tag end there.
Oh, yep, good call. That goes back on. Make sure those are good and snug. And then you just bite down.
Again, no sound. the way you have is
Yeah.
you've done some things with the hockey tape to silence this system, but we've done a couple podcasts with Cody over the last few years. Actually, we recorded one not that long ago and realized, oh my gosh, it's been a couple of years. Yeah. It's been too long. But the subtleties and the nuances that are engineered into, like we use the word system. Yep. I mean, it's so well thought out.
It is.
It's so well thought out.
Totally.
And it's thought out from a person that is doing these things at a very high volume and a very high level. And it's only these little things that you figure out by doing. And,
absolutely. And there's a ton of awesome brands out there in the space. But what I really appreciate about a guy like Cody is you shoot him an Instagram message if you got a question on any of this stuff. Cody is going to reply to you and tell you what to do to make sure that you feel confident. So then once you're all set to go, I mean, I was just kind of doing that as we were talking. You just kind of loop, swoop, keep going like that. That goes around the bottom. I always go 2, pull it tight, throw it on the back. You're ready to
go.
Off
do you put
go.
the whole kit in your pack, or do you lash it to the outside?
I latch it to the outside because it is so sleek. I take a compression strap and I just hook it and zink you up, and you're good to go.
Gotcha.
So then that frees up all of the internal space inside my backpack for snacks, bibs, jacket, all your insulating layers. So, yeah.
Rick, I am looking at this as the one thing that was an absolute pita about that bear hunt that I had done a few years ago was, one, the distance that I had to walk to get there with my, at the time, fairly compact setup, just large, large. And then not as buttoned up as this, not as secure as this, not as intelligent as this, and that I did have to run 4 sticks to get high. Yeah. And it's just, you can set 3 sticks faster than you can set 4 sticks. Yep. And you can get higher with these 3 than you can those 4. This makes me want to buy the Rick kit, do that bear hunt again, and then go chase mule deer in the river bottoms during muley rut with a rifle.
Totally. Absolutely. Yeah, it's fun. It really is, and it really did even change the way that I kind of thought about going into my sets in the morning. For example, just small things. Like if you have a longer stick and you don't stack them vertically, you stack them horizontally and you put them in your backpack, what are they doing? As soon as your bow hand goes back, the bottom part of your bow, the bottom limb, is going to ding onto those. I can show you a million scratches on my bow 100%. From that. So it's small things that you don't, that never makes it on a spec sheet or a piece of marketing materials or anything like that. But that's the real world things that, I kind of pay attention to with this stuff. And, that is the game changer for me.
Right.
So
one thing I instantly noticed about the strap style on those steps is how quiet they are.
Yeah. Yep. No metal on metal contact.
No metal on metal. No. Yeah.
Dang.
Darn it, Rick.
Dang.
I knew we shouldn't have done this.
Yeah. This is typically how this goes. Exactly. So that's my show and tell for the day.
Just one and done?
Just one and done.
Hey.
I went with something I was confident in, something I was truly excited about, and that is it.
I'm not even going to mention it, but it's similar but different. But I got something recently, but it was towards the end of the season that I really wanted to show and tell because I'm super excited about it, but I also haven't used it. And
I appreciate that.
I made such a big stink last year about reviews and how I hate reviews where they're haven't looks great, 5 stars, haven't used it. I'm like, you've done me. So I had to, even though I'm so pumped. So maybe this is a little foreshadowing for next year's, but hopefully I have something that I can talk about as well in that regard.
I dig it.
Ryan, you've got some things.
I brought some things, Mark. You want me to start?
Please do.
Okay. First thing is not a new product this year, but a product that I have used so much in the past 6 months of ownership. I will say it has improved me as a shooter and a hand loader. And this is a Garmin Xero chronograph. Now, a couple of things I want to say. I'm generally not somebody to recommend super duper expensive products. This is not an inexpensive product. They are worth every dollar that you spend on them. And so when I was shopping around, I found a good deal on one, ordered one up. The novelty behind a Xero is, one, its form factor. You'll notice if you're watching, it's on this tiny tripod. Two, instead of attaching anything to your gun, or instead of you having to shoot through a field, if you will, the Xero basically uses LiDAR technology to read your projectile. The really cool part is the different types of projectiles that you can shoot through this thing. If you've got an airsoft gun, a paintball gun, a bow and arrow, a crossbow, if you've got a shotgun slug, if you've got shotgun shot, if you've got a slingshot, if you've got a rifle bullet, if it will pass through this, we'll call it the cone, and it is of a minimum velocity, which I think is about 200 feet per second, maybe a little bit lower than that, 170, it'll pick it up and it'll register it. The device has a companion app with it that will also feed you some more data. You can select what shows up on your screen if you want extreme spread, if you want ES, SD, low, high, whatever. It'll calculate kinetic energy. It stores and sorts your shot strings as sessions, and then the companion app just simply expounds or compounds on that. For me, I got my first chronograph, an optical chronograph, when I was probably 16 years old. So then I really started hand loading quite a bit. And it was fine. It worked great. But it was a pain in the butt. I had to carry a large photography tripod to set it up. There's a specified field that you can shoot through. It was contingent on light availability. You couldn't have too much. You couldn't have too little. You either had to use a shade or you had to use a lighting kit. And it was large. It was a large, cumbersome piece of equipment. A few years later, a company called Magnetospeed shows up, and they came out with, at the time, what I thought was the most revolutionary product in chronographs, and actually honestly was. We'll call it a bayonet-style attachment that goes on the underside of your rifle's barrel. Now, they're spectacularly lightweight. They're not marketed to not shift your point of impact. Like, they don't make a bold claim that says you'll see 0 point of impact shift, but you still have to attach them to the gun. And if you're really a purist in your hand loading and you really want to know what your rifle's capable of, you cannot have mechanical influence on your barrel while you're shooting for groups. So what I would end up doing is I would shoot a group with the Magnetospeed attached, not even a group, but just a validating string to gather and understand my muzzle velocity. I'd remove the chronograph, and then I'd fire for accuracy. And you can see how that is not necessarily conducive for success.
Well, time,
ammo. Yep.
If you are reloading, you're reloading for the, to get your velocity.
Yeah.
Then you're testing accuracy.
Yep.
You're doing it all in one here.
Correct. With the Xero, it is power on. Select your speed bands. So I'm usually operating in the rifle space, which is about 1,700 to 5,000 feet per second. I went through the pro settings, if you will, and you can disable a bunch of the menu prompts, so it just gets you right to the chronograph screen. You set it between 5 and 15 inches from your barrel, and you point it downrange and you shoot it. Yeah. I've fired literally now thousands of rounds over this thing since owning it. I've had it for 6 months. Yeah. And it has made my life so easy as a hand loader when I'm out doing long range work. Validation is live and instantaneous. Everything about it is, it's just simply an exceptional product. It is expensive. It is worth it if you have the need for chronograph data.
Which I think everyone does.
I agree. So we have a ton of these at Edge too. And the guys will line them up. And this has been a challenge with radar chronographs or LiDAR chronographs in the past, because it's not a brand new idea. They've existed in our industry in some capacity. But if you had 6 of them on a line, a lot of times you'll get interference or noise, or somebody else's bullet firing through the wider part of your cone will activate yours and you'll get a false read. we've had these things set up like during our hunter sighting event. We had 3 of them going at one time, getting data for people, and it's not polluted. And it just is a marvelous product. I was at actually an antelope camp this year, and one of the guys that I hunt with out there had a new load, new rifle. He'd proofed it out to 200, and it's a high caliber rifle, and we made a stock, and we got to like 356. And he's like, I can't take the shot. I don't have data. And I said, okay, I respect that decision. I said, when we get back to the truck, we're going to rip one over the Xero. He had never seen one. We fired it up, set it on the tailgate, and he just took a position and fired the rifle, and boom, there's his MV. Turns out it was exactly what he figured it would be. It was in like plus minus 8 feet per second. So he probably could have taken that shot. But the convenience, the portability, the accuracy, and the speed at which this device operates is simply marvelous.
Oh, and just the setup too. Like, boom.
That's the thing that I think is so cool about these is throw that in a ammo can in the back of your pickup truck when you go out to Wyoming or whatever your hunt is. For me, from like a bow hunting standpoint, I can shoot my bow over that thing and know that it needs to be right at I'm like 269 feet per second is what it should be shooting when everything is like running smooth. And I know if all of a sudden, man, I'm at 261 or like 258, something happened. Same thing with your rifle, same exact thing. If all of a sudden you're like, man, what is going on? That thing requires no real setup of like the traditional, chronographs. You don't have to lug around the tripod, all the things. It's there. You throw it in your pack. You always have it, so.
Yeah, I mean, it's not taking up any meaningful extra space in the truck. Like you said, the setup is easy. And also, like, oftentimes I find with electronics, it's like, and I'm sure this probably has capabilities that I have not unlocked, right? But for what I've needed to use this for, setting it up and getting through, like, essentially one menu, hitting a couple button presses, whatever it was, I was like, oh, I can use this thing. Yeah. And I was getting all the velocities and informations.
New session, rifle, velocity band, and go.
Yeah.
Oops, I mean, I pushed one too many buttons.
That is it. Like, it's not like, okay, now go to this menu and then scroll down. And
and if you do get
as
lost,
simple as it gets.
Garmin does such a good job with their like support videos. So I have a Garmin watch, and when I want to try to do something new with the watch, like you go type it into Google, the first thing that's going to come up is a Garmin YouTube video. Same thing with the Xero.
It's a marvelous product. I can't say enough about it. And again, as I, especially hand loading, because I really enjoy hand loading. One, from a hobbyist perspective, but two, because I like unlock levels of performance that factory stuff can't give me. It has made me better. Like, there's a tangible to it. It's not just a nice to have. Now I look at it as a need to have.
Sure.
And it has made me better. So great product, Garmin Xero Chronograph. I highly recommend it. Fits in a stocking, by the way. The next one here is still new in the box, Mark. So I know you were mad about...
I should have brought my thing then.
But I've used these before.
Okay.
So this is a really cool product, and this is as much of a customer service thing as it is a functional piece of equipment. This is a KalixTeknik CR1 adjustable cheek piece module. And these are designed to work with about 98% of the hollow synthetic stocks that we as especially American riflemen have available to us today. So I'm going to just pick on one brand, Tikka, for instance. If you remove the rubber recoil pad of your Tikka rifle, if you have a new T3X model, you're going to find a foam insert, which is just kind of a decent density foam. You're going to remove that. The great folks at KalixTeknik have come up with a sub 4 ounce solution to have an adjustable cheek piece in there. You drill 2 holes in the top, 1 hole through the stock. You put this little rascal in there. You tighten down I guess you drill 3 holes through the top. You tighten down a tension screw, and then now we have a pretty wild height adjustment on the cheek piece. Very reasonably affordable for what they are. You can usually get these for around $150. The engineering behind them, the touch points, the fit and finish are exceptional. The first time I held one of these things, I thought it should cost probably $300 from like a build quality standpoint. Brilliant design. And when I mentioned earlier, this is almost a customer service piece more than a product recommendation. A tremendous number of calls that we field on an annual basis, especially when we're getting right before hunting season. If a shooter goes out and buys a new system, rifle and optic, is rifle fitment. And this is something I'm utterly obsessed about. Actually, Rick, you and I were on the range.
Yeah, that's exactly where I'm thinking about with all of this.
Yes. Rifle fitment is something that goes wildly overlooked rather. In that we take for granted that the rifle goes in your shoulder, you hold it by the wrist and the grip, you hold the front end and you pull the trigger. That's mostly true, but how you as an individual index and how you as an individual kind of meld and form to your rifle is so critical for repeatability, recoil mitigation, comfortability when you're behind the gun, what I call approaching the gun and getting into a functional position in a short amount of time.
Right.
If it's not something that you do every day or close to, if you pick up a foreign system to you and you got to sit and hunt and peck and feel where everything goes, you're not going to have a good shooting experience. One of the best pieces of gear on a rifle or pieces of anatomy on a rifle for getting a shooter acclimated is the index point on the comb, which is what this is going to accomplish. If your head is at the right placement, fore and aft and up and down, so that you position yourself behind the optic, you don't fish for it. You just get into position and you execute the shot. And then there's also...
Can I say something?
Yeah,
Ryan?
please.
Not only are you not fishing for that position to where you're going to look through the rifle scope and everything's going to be how you want it. Oftentimes, you're actually fishing for a non-optimal position. So
Right.
not only have you taken the extra time to look for it, not only are you frustrated, not only have you possibly missed an opportunity, but when you do go to execute that shot, you're not in the optimal position.
Yep. And this piece honestly would solve a tremendous amount of customer frustration because rifles in the United States are not appropriately set up for telescopic weapon sights. I will say it again, and I will say it louder, and I will point fingers. They are built for iron sights, and it is at the time of airing, it'll be 2025.
Yep.
How many rifles out there in centerfire cartridges for big game hunting are set up with iron sights? So few, it's not even worth mentioning. Dear rifle manufacturers of the United States of America, and for those of you our friends and allies in other countries importing them, please note comb heights need to be higher, or include one KalixTeknik CR1 adjustable cheek piece in it. A couple things I really think are quite novel about this, and they're the devil's in the details. The rear vertical post is about 1 millimeter longer than the front and has this nice little recessed groove in there that works with an included C-clip that goes over to give you an over-travel stop, so you can't yank that rascal out if you don't want to. There's also some marks on the bottom, on the rear post that are index points. So if you have two shooters and one of them requires one height and the other one requires another, you can just simply count, or you can mark with like a paint pen what index notch that is for you so you can get back on it quicker. Very durable, very svelte, lightweight, which I'm obsessed with as well. And for your rifles like Ruger Americans, Browning X bolts, Browning A bolts, Winchester XPRs, Tikka T3Xs, Savage 110s, any stock that is a hollow synthetic stock design, this is a viable solution. And if you go on KalixTeknik's website and you look at the "it fits this," it goes on and on and on and on and on. If you're somebody who has a conventional wood stock, or a stock like Mark has a couple Manners stocks that are carbon shell, but they're filled. KalixTeknik also has a solution for you there. It's a little more involved, and it depends on how gutsy you are with doing your own gun work. This is something certainly a competent real gunsmith should be able to sort out. Effectively, the same or similar mechanism in play, where you're actually going to cut a chunk of your stock out, and you're going to create an adjustable comb using that piece. You inlet this little block or a similar block to it inside of the stock, epoxy it in place. You pilot the through hole for the adjustment knob, and then you affix 2 pillars to the underside of that removed piece. You now have a fairly seamless integration that is attractive and functional. Little bit of legwork, not the end of the world. It's not honestly that big of a gunsmithing project to do, and especially for somebody who knows their way around a stock, who's done an inlet, who can bed, or who just simply has the equipment to do it. KalixTeknik has great videos on how to do both. They'll walk you through it and give you an idea of what you're getting into. But I cannot say enough for this nifty little product. And again, flyweight, weighs nothing, fits so many different guns and so well, and will absolutely elevate, no pun intended, your shooting experience, your driving experience with the rifle. It'll make you more consistent. I'm going to pick on Rick because he's a bow guy.
Yep.
And something that I never understand about bow guys. I will never see a group of people so obsessed with their equipment, constantly touching things, new vein, new glue for the veins, lighter glue for the veins, heavier glue for the veins. All this stuff that they put into the bow to take a 20-yard shot. And I'm not trying to downplay how critical it is to be particular about your equipment, especially when you're talking about archery, because there's zero margin for error. Yep. But when it came to the rifle side of things, where I think I'm a little bit stronger than, it's like, man, if you put 10% of the efforts that you put into the archery equipment into the rifle, your experience with that, your predictability, your comfortability, your ability to access target from rifle quicker, faster, and more accurately.
Extend your effective range.
Yeah.
Right. And do it faster, too.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
All the same body mechanics from archery translate into rifles, which is why I appreciate bow guys. When I've got a customer in the shop, we're talking about rifle fit, I'll often ask, hey, do you shoot a bow? Yeah. Most people in southern Wisconsin are like, well, yeah. Yep. Draw length is not dissimilar to length of pull that we would have on a rifle, in that your draw length is X minus Y, Mark's is Z. We could pass each other's bows around and we could probably fling arrows, but it wouldn't be optimal.
Absolutely.
No.
Your setup's built for you, mine's for me, Mark's is for his. Your rifle should fit you as well as your bow fits you. And if it does, you'll mitigate recoil better. To your point, you'll get on target faster, either on the initial or on the recovery. You'll approach the rifle sooner. So if you get into a crap situation in which you've got to take, a seated or semi-prone or full prone or weird position, you get into the gun quicker, faster, and you deliver payload to target more accurately. It's worth it. That's all I've got to say about that.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I mean, like using the bow analogy is a really good one. I mean, I feel like I can at any time pull my bow back and I know exactly where things are and I can just get on target fast.
Yeah, you're in your peep.
Yeah, exactly.
Without
like as
looking.
soon as it comes back, it's there, versus on the flip side, in Alaska this year, had to shoot the rifle that we were setting up, which we acknowledged that if it was a borrowed gun from Vortex. If that were my personal gun, we likely would have made a couple modifications to it to set it up for me. And ultimately, the bear that I did shoot up there this year, after doing some legwork, I'll never forget getting down on that gun and fishing around a little bit to try to get a perfect sight picture on that. And thankfully, the bear that I killed was out there, just feeding. He wasn't going anywhere, so I had time on my side. But he was making his way, behind a lone pine tree, and you never know. So, I mean, there was an element of like having to move quick. And I remember your voice echoing in my head as I was trying to get on that gun in an awkward position, finally did get feeling good and made a good shot. But all of that said, that it could have been done so much faster at the same level of proficiency that I feel with my bow. Hey, buck's going to hit this hole. Boom, I'm on it. Arrow's gone. Versus, hey, bear's in that window. We got him for 4 seconds. Okay, down in the pack. boom, bear's
Right.
dead.
The rifle should be easier than the bow.
Yeah, absolutely.
It should be. And you know, when you were mentioning taking the shot under your harness, like the weak side shot, that's something that I know you practice. I know you're up a tree in your saddles, in your hang-ons, and I know you're getting into it. And with the rifle, unless you have a ton of room in a range that allows you to go prone or go seated, or it's hard, right? Because you can't necessarily shoot a rifle in your backyard. I mean, maybe you're lucky and you can. So nailing the fitment on the what I'll call the touch points of the rifle is so important to me. And it's something that I continually obsess over and change, much like you dial in your bow until finally you arrive at a design and you're like, yes, this is as good as it gets. So if you're sitting there and you're feeling that maybe your rifle doesn't fit you as good as it possibly can, the number one piece will be some sort of cheek riser. And if I can recommend one, it's the KalixTeknik CR1.
I think a lot of folks put up with improper rifle fitment, and they don't really even know they're doing it.
Correct.
They're just saying, this is how my gun works, and this is what I have to do to make it work. And it's like, man, we shouldn't be having to make these things work. I mean, not to be overly dramatic, but
You're
you
100%
want to
correct.
feel like you are one with the rifle. Getting that perfect sight picture should be very natural. You should not have to work for that. And this is a tool to help you do that.
Yeah. And to your point, Mark, I think a lot of people, like, all of a sudden when you get behind a gun and you're like, wow, that feels, I feel
you're
really
just like,
good.
ooh, yeah.
That's what you should feel every time. Same thing with, to beat the bow analogy to death, when you pull your bow back, it should feel like, man, this is for me.
I mean, can you imagine every time you pulled your bow back and you're like,
hunting your
trying
head
to
around.
move your head around to find the peat? Like, no way, man.
Yeah, I can. Because I remember 20 years ago when I got my first bow, that's exactly what was going on. I mean, and that was draw length a half inch too long because I was going to, quote, grow into it. Right. And so you're pushing stuff forward. It doesn't work.
No. Don't do that with your gun.
No. Okay. KalixTeknik CR1. Moving along. I have two items on the table. It's going to be the same talking point. Spartan Precision Stability Systems is what I'm going to title this one. I have in front of me a Javelin Pro Hunt, which is one of the two classified hunting bipods out there. I have this one in the standard length instead of the tall. If you've listened to this production before, you'll know I am not a fan of bipods, only because there are so few instances in which they actually become useful for me that I, for more or less, not quite the past decade, but I've almost exclusively omitted them from my loadout. And then a few years ago, I was introduced to one of these and I became very curious. And I thought to myself, how about a bipod system that doesn't live on my rifle, but it can when I want it to, and I don't have to twist a knob, bop it, or pull it, or flick it. It just sticks into the rifle. And so I took the plunge and I invested heavily into Spartan Precision. And one of the first things that I got was the Javelin Pro Hunt. And I went pretty deep into this, and that I also got the Gunsmith adapters. I inletted my stocks for them, or I should say piloted my stocks for them, epoxied them in place. I put the universal adapters on in lieu of my standard sling swivel stud, which also provides you with the sling swivel solution. And then I hit the field. And this year in Wyoming, opening morning, I spotted a slammer of a pronghorn, and I had a very enthusiastic run to him, shall we say. And when I got into a position, I was in what I would describe as the best prone position simply possible, in that I was on a slight upslope. There was a steep downgrade in front of me, like a basin, and then he was elevated eye level, and I have my Javelin in what's called an APHIS holster for it that resides under the underside of my FHF harness. I withdraw said Javelin, I insert said Javelin into the stock, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm on a functional bipod. And you can orient this thing, you can flip it around, either Spartan logo facing you or Spartan logo away, to lock or unlock a panning function. It has an inherent amount of tilt to it, so you can kind of load or unload the bipod. And I panned on that goat for, I don't know, probably an 80-yard walk that he took without really having to break position too much. I just kind of slid over, and he never stopped, so I never shot him off the bipod.
Not something you can do on every bipod.
Right, yeah.
No. So in the past, I had run Harris BRSs, which are a great pod. They're very affordable. They're relatively lightweight. They're about a pound. This is 7 ounces, by the way, a little over 7 ounces. He disappears behind a knoll, and I know where he's going. He's going to a water hole that we have on the ranch, and I've been there 100 times. I knew where he was going to be, more or less. So I stand up, I yank my pod off the bottom of my rifle, I slide it back into my AFIS, clip it in place, and I take off. I've got another 300 or so yards to go, and I come up to this very large hill that I had to go up, compose myself at the top, and then sneak over the top to have view of the water hole. And very, very steep piece of topography going down to this water hole, which is why it's full of water. And I deployed my Springbok shooting sticks. If you have listened to this production before, you know that I am a major fan of shooting sticks. It's probably the most utilitarian and useful piece of stability equipment. The Springbok attaches much the same way, neodymium magnet into a socket. I went to the gunsmith adapter that I had put into my stock about 2.5 inches forward of my front action screw. The legs are length adjustable, and they can get to the point where me as a relatively tall person can kneel with them, or me as a relatively tall person can sit in them. They splay a tremendous amount. They articulate in multiple directions, but most importantly, they're rock solid stable. So I got into a rather unconventional position, steep downhill grade to where I was sitting, locked myself in place with my feet in front of me, heels dug into the ground, deployed the stick, put load and tension onto the stick, and I was rock solid.
Not something you can do with every shooting stick?
No, because you also generally have to manage the stick at the same time.
It's kind of what I'm thinking about, like, throughout all of this is, like, I've got a very generic pair of shooting sticks. They work great, but there's a lot of things where I would have been having to manage the gun in one hand and the shooting stick in the other hand.
Yep. So what I was able to do, because these sticks, these are effectively attached to my gun, and I put load on them, and they are dug in. The bottoms, and I didn't deploy them. The bottoms are a carbide tip. So if I've got terrain that I have to positively anchor into, I can stab that into the earth and lock in. I'm leaning downhill. I take my support hand and I hook my bipod and I grab onto my pack strap. And now I am tied into my rifle, tied into my stick, leaning forward. Out pops that goat, 286 yards. I was shooting a super lightweight rifle, which is very difficult to do in an otherwise. I'm supported, but I'm like a vertical support situation. Locked in. I held 1.5 MOA high on target, pressed trigger, and watched the bullet impact. Panned with him after I cycled out, watched him fall down and die. And I was sold on him the moment I touched him. I was so reinforced on that decision that this is quite simply the best shooting stick solution that exists, period. You can, depending on your terrain too, you can go prone in them. It's not necessarily what they were designed for.
Yeah, but they do splay out.
There's enough flexion in there, yet enough support that if you've got a rifle that's light enough, or if you're particular enough about how you place yourself on that rifle, you can prone out on them. And a few days later, I was in a prone position, looking at another batch of pronghorn at just over 300 yards. Didn't end up shooting one, but nonetheless, proned out on these sticks. And it was fantastic. It is just such an outstanding stability solution. I cannot wait to add more gunsmith adapters and universal adapters to my other rifles that can fit them, or that will be appropriate on them. Lightweight, these are, I believe, rated at about 12 ounces. So it's a product that I'm going to carry and not feel bad about. They're relatively compact. What's really neat about the Spartan system too, much like your Lonewolf custom gear stuff here, is that every leg fits every tripod, bipod, or shooting stick situation. So Taylor just got a Springbok and javelin system as well. He went with some of Spartan's larger leg sections.
Okay.
And is putting them on the Springbok. And it's almost an experiment at this point. But the more robust legs, one, offer a more robust and stable shooting solution. Two, he gets a little more adjustability out of them than the standard legs. Not a massive weight penalty. He picked up a couple of ounces net, but he got into some significantly better stability with them. I still wouldn't hesitate just having shot off sticks as long as I have. Like if I'm in a good position, this will keep me stable to my ethical limit of engagement. Taylor's system is going to just amplify that. And if I wanted to take these short javelin legs off of this and put it onto the Springbok yoke, I can do that. If I wanted to take the long leg sections on the Springbok yoke and put them onto the javelin, I can do that.
That was going to be my question. I was waiting on that one.
Yep.
That's really cool. So that is completely integratable. Like you can just swap.
Yep. The
That's cool.
Legs will just thread out, and I can put those legs in there, vice versa, switch them around. Very intelligent products. Wonderful, wonderful solutions.
I'd say that's a very cool feature, but these two products I've found to be nearly perfect. Like I haven't personally used them and been like, man, I wish it would do this.
Right.
And Ryan, I say that, and I think probably what I'll do at this point is just pick up where you left off. And we don't tell each other what we're going to bring on these things.
Oh, look
so
at this.
we
Serendipitous.
We have a high level of corroborative evidence here that these items, in my opinion, can change your hunting life. I
Yes.
too, Ryan, I was on the bipod for a while, then I was off the bipod for a while. I was really on shooting sticks. You can listen to we did a podcast a while back on shooting sticks, Ryan.
Yep.
One of our biggest gripes was the fact that the two models that we both really liked were not made anymore.
Correct.
Yeah.
Discontinued.
And now we have a much better mousetrap, in my opinion, that is here, it's real, and I'm not joking. Like, this is something that will go with me on every rifle hunt. I'm holding the Springbok shooting sticks. I have mine extended right now because
Okay, that's what I was going to ask, because yours appear longer, but that's just because
I just wanted to show the, kind of how tall you can get them. The amount, the variety of terrain that these can accommodate is staggering. The legs are independently adjustable. One thing that I like about them, how they adjust compared to shooting sticks that I've used in the past, which are like kind of segmented. These are very quiet. They're carbon. Carbon is an inherently quiet material, but I mean, just the, twist lock, quiet slide in and out. And by being able to adjust them to varying heights, and I'll bring up, and I brought this up in the podcast we did a podcast also with Rob Gearing of Spartan Precision, talked through a lot of his products, and I mentioned this scenario, but it's one that just really, to me, like exemplified just the functionality and varied terrain. Pretty steep, uneven hillside. I actually tried to get in multiple positions, stacking packs to be able to shoot off the bipod. There was definitely potential for a long-range shot. It just wasn't going to happen. What I was able to do was take the Springbok out, actually put the legs at different heights. I set them up in a position where I could shoot from, where I anticipated an animal might come out, and I was rock solid. I wouldn't say that I wouldn't be able to shoot as far as I would, like if I was prone off a bipod, but I felt pretty darn comfortable shooting pretty darn far.
Yeah. And what you just said there is you felt comfortable. That goes into both of the things that we, Ryan, you were talking about the KalixTeknik's cheek piece and these things. Like, common theme, if you're comfortable, you're going to be able to shoot further.
Yep.
As soon as you're like kind of off kilter, like you're hoping.
Off kilter and stability is key, in my opinion, for executing any shot. I mean, get as stable as you can. You're going to have varying levels of stability depending on what position you're in and how that shot is presenting itself. But these Springbuck shooting sticks are just, I mean, they are a game changer. They do free up a hand compared to other styles of shooting sticks. You know, you can load them like you said, Ryan. I know I'm reiterating a lot of what you said, but also freeing up that hand. I can think of, elk hunting. Last year, we did that film project with Remy. You know, we got in a situation, it was happening fast. I grabbed my pack. I had kind of actually not as I would have preferred to have, just the way it's set up. I was more comfortable and more stable actually having kind of the midpoint of the rifle on the pack. Remy threw me his pack. I threw that under my arm for some rear support. Had my back up into a tree. Had I had these Springbuck shooting sticks, though, could have walked in, plopped down, been stable on the front, and then grab my own pack. I'm not dependent on another person. Grab that, kind of shove that under my arm, and I'm ready to rock and roll.
Here's a question for both you guys.
Mm-hmm.
Between the bipod and the shooting sticks, if you were going to recommend just one to somebody,
Sticks.
That's where I figured you would go that way.
You can cover prone down
with a backpack.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Or, you know, in the right terrain with the sticks. Prone is such a rare shot. Yeah. Like true prone. Yep. Everything has to be just right. And by that, I mean, you can get into a position seated that is arguably more stable, comfortable, and then versatile, where
prone is so vegetation dependent.
Oh, God, yeah. Vegetation dependent terrain that's right in front of you, terrain between you and target, and terrain on target. Yeah. And you see prone in every video. Yeah. You see prone on every range. Yeah. The anticipation is prone. Right. And it is the most durable position to get into. And there's zero question about that. You can't get any more stable than your entire body as a point of contact with the earth. Right. But it's infrequent that you encounter it. Mm-hmm. And at least in a perfect scenario, it would be a situation in which I would encourage you to start looking at how to shoot stably seated. Yeah. And prone, if your whole system is dialed and your rifle's a comfortable rifle, prone's a hard position to get into and stay into on a target unless your rifle system accommodates you in that position as well. Because think about it. I mean, we can all lay face down, but how long can you lay face forward while body down? Unless you've got anchor points on your rifle that maintain you in that position without you having to hold yourself up with musculature. In a seated position, we can all sit for a long time. Yep. And the longer that you can hold that position, the more durable you're going to be in that position, ergo the more durable the position. If I was going to pick one, unquestionably, it would be the Springbuck, the shooting sticks. If you have to source a prone solution, that target's probably pretty distant. You can find other ways to get prone comfortably to execute that shot, namely the pack.
I will say, though, the weight penalty of having both, you know, your wallet penalty will be, you know, is a different story.
That was the penalty I was worried about.
Premium product.
But I would be a proponent, and I wouldn't have said this before, I would be a proponent of having both. I mean, I keep these the way I've been running it, just on the left side of my harness, right? And so depending on situationally, you know, like I've got this here at the ready. If I'm walking, or if I think, well, oftentimes if I'm just walking, like let's say I'm walking around, I'll just keep these in my hand, right? If I have if I'm doing like kind of a final approach, if you will, I'll have them out. I'll have them extended to some degree to give myself, you know, a high level of flexibility depending on if I get that shot opportunity. I may have had to stow my trekking poles at this point to do that. These can operate as a pseudo trekking pole. I mean, I can think of one occasion where, you know, we were kind of making a final move and you kind of lose your footing. Boom, I was able to plant that. I'm not going to walk with it all day as a trekking pole, but it certainly, you know, could suffice in an instance like that. Cannot say enough good things about these. If you are set up in a spot, maybe you're stand hunting whitetails and you're in a sitting position, another thing that I like is you can be set up. You can have them, the rifle on them. Now you've got minimal movement, right? Now I can sit there and be like, there's that buck. And instead of having to raise my gun or grab my gun or whatever, what have you, now it's just a simple, maybe a little bit of lift and a move, and you're executing that shot. So potentially not spooking a critter.
Right. Yep.
And just to illustrate that, I've got my last piece of gear coming up here, but I can illustrate. I've got one of the universal adapters here, and it's like, oh, boom, here we go. We've got that in there. No, I'm trying to do this. But it's like, oh, I got my bipod. Yeah. Oh, I don't want to do my bipod. I want to transition to shooting sticks. And it's just that fast. And so just the versatility that it gives you to accommodate whatever you encounter in the field, to me, is astounding.
One of my worries when I was flirting with this product a couple years ago was the retention of the magnet. So I run about a 4.5 pound tripod, and I also picked up one of Rob's little Arca Swiss adapters.
Right. Yep.
And so I look at stability as a system solution. There's not one thing that is perfect, and there are certain times in which I will need more or less of my entire palette of stability solutions to execute a shot. So a lot of times, especially hunting in the West, I'm going to have a tripod on my person, on my pack, and I knew that shooting off a tripod, that's about as stable as you can get. And so he makes this nifty little, imagine, if you will, the magnetized part of either the Springbuck or the Javelin that's integrated to a small piece of Arca Swiss shaped aluminum. So I have an Arca Swiss head on my tripod. I plug that little rascal into my gunsmith adapter. I tie into my tripod. I can pick up my 4.5 pound tripod with that magnet and shake it.
It's wild.
And it doesn't fall out.
Yeah.
But I can just as easily grab it off.
Yeah.
And that was a really special piece of equipment. One, there's nothing else like it out there. Two, I think Spartan could have got a lot more money for it because there's nothing else like it out there. It's $29.
Wow.
It was an instantaneous add to cart. And practicing off it and shooting off it and actually shooting in tandem with my tripod and my sticks, my tripod standalone, the level of articulation I can get on it and lock in my rifle on my tripod is astounding. I can take a standing shot. I can take a kneeling shot, a seated shot. I can damn near shoot prone off my tripod as well if I remove the center column. But it is a slick system, and as Mark had demonstrated with the universal adapter up there, you still have your sling swivel functionality, which is important. You have easy clip in, clip out. It's right now. My fears of losing this thing due to it being held in by a magnet completely alleviated.
Well, and there's been so many times where I'm in one spot and maybe I either have the bipod or the shooting sticks in, and you're like, oh, we got to go 10 yards this way or 20 yards that way, or let's scoot up there. Sure. I just run with it in. And like you said, Ryan, I am not worried about it
popping out.
About it popping out. And then when I get to that spot, boom, you're able to plop down and deploy whichever one you have in at that time. And different hunts require different tools, right? There could be some hunts where maybe I take one or both of these things. Like you mentioned, the Arca adapter one. There might be a hunt or an application, maybe professionally, that you want to use that piece. So it's the mix. I'm drawing at least in some ways a couple parallels with the Lonewolf custom
100%.
gear. It's
I
like,
was thinking the same thing as you were mentioning that. Yeah, modularity, adaptability to different scenarios, and it all integrates.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty cool.
Last and definitely not least is the new 300 WSM. So this is Ryan. We did a podcast. In fact, we covered a lot of this stuff when we talked with Rob. Oh, this isn't last but not least, but I'm gonna talk about it right now because I have one more thing. I'll make it snappy, which actually this rifle, surprisingly, I don't find is. It shoots really well, and one of the reasons it does that is the Manners EHT carbon fiber stock that I put on to it fits the Tika action. So I pulled the action off my previous 300 WSM, plugged it into this thing. Had Matt Peterson at Peterson Precision put all this together. How many P's can you put in one sentence? I don't know. I think I just tried all of them. And, man, it just shoots really well. I think the carbon fiber construction and this really good recoil pad just mitigate recoil.
See that thing, Marco.
It's not snappy.
It is a delight to shoot. I do not like recoil.
For a lightweight 300, it is
It's as good as it gets.
it is as good as it gets. Put a 22-inch Proof Research carbon wrapped Sendero light contour barrel. That's the only contour that would fit that stock, which is actually what I wanted anyway, so that worked out perfectly. The rifle shoots.
Boy, that thing feels like a dream.
I mean, it shoots like an absolute house of fire. You know, for me, man, it is just my new do-all. I can take that rifle on any hunt. I can be confident that's going to knock down anything I want it to knock down. It's lightweight. It's got a pretty compact form factor. It's like I said, it's so accurate. I'm comfortable shooting it at long range. On that bear hunt, I did execute a long range shot.
You did have this gun on that hunt.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That was the first hunt you had it out on, right?
It is, yeah.
That's cool.
In that form.
In that form, yeah.
You've done some work with that gun in short order.
In the raw Tika form, I shot a bear and a buck, and then and then that other. Oh, wait, a bear? No, a deer, an elk, and a bear.
Carry the one.
And then with this one, I've shot a deer and a bear now.
Mark Boardman, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay, now, last but not least, I love having a scalpel style knife.
Sutures.
With me when I go hunting, and still got some. That appears to be a feather of some sort.
Sure.
This is the at least new to me, and I think fairly new in general. The new Rogue Expel scalpel knife. It's got that handy dandy little thing there.
Mark, you've been cleaning ducks with that, haven't you?
That must have been the last thing that I've done. Yes.
Not cleaning the knife, but.
I love this thing. It's super cool, and it gets the job done. It's extremely lightweight. It's got the clip. I like that.
It's orange, which I like.
Yeah, definitely.
It's orange. I like that. And the other cool thing is, here's the Expel part. An issue that I've had with previous scalpel knives that I have used quite a bit. Is getting the blades on and off, right? So this, you unlock it. It's kind of your traditional lock back folder. I like that this is a folding. They make also a non-folding version. I like this folding version. You kind of go like this.
There's like an intermediate position here. Look at that. You can shoot that at your friends.
Yeah.
I didn't have to. Out and away. Out and away. But yeah, as you can see, I didn't have to touch anything there.
What is this no?
So this holds your blades. It's probably kind of hard to see,
It dispenses.
because I don't want to.
It's like a Pez.
And
it's
then
like a Pez machine for blades.
And then, you might want to just kind of push that back in.
I shouldn't touch your stuff. That is wild.
So, and it dispenses, and it's also a receptacle for spent blades.
Yeah.
Right.
And it is reloadable.
And it's reloadable.
Oh man.
That way you don't just have errant blades hanging around the hills.
You know, that
Right.
is a talking point among these style of knives is what does a person do with
100%. That's why I've always stayed away from them.
Yeah.
So, and I'll say what this has allowed me not to do, which it is I would just bury little artifacts for future civilizations to find, which you point that straight down and get it all the way down in some dense earth, and that it's
going to degrade. So I remember that one time you came in, presumably from changing blades after a hunting expedition. You had bandages on several fingers. And I said, "You all right?" And I'm over it. And that's like a thing. They're super convenient because they're massively sharp. I mean, you can go through stuff with these things, precision work. You can actually do some pretty heavy lifting with them too. But then what do you do with the blades when you got to change them in the field when your hands are cold and wet?
That is
and
sweet.
You can, you know, like in the past, I've carried like a little multi-tool to, you know, pull them on and off, so you're not getting your fingers, you know, in harm's way. But it's an ingenious little design, though. Yeah. And like I said, I mean, it's lightweight, and I've really liked this thing. So this is the bear that I shot in Washington. Yeah. So
can I see your dirty blade?
The three of us. So we all worked on that bear together, but did my part with this one, and it worked really well. Goodbye. Off you go.
Unbelievable. And Rick, you said it best. It's like a Pez.
Yeah.
It is like a Pez. How intelligent.
Right?
It's pretty cool.
And so presumably you load your freshies from this side.
Mm-hmm.
It's got a handy container, so when you stop by your local gas station on your way home from your hunt and there's a Sharps container, you get rid of your expendeds, or, you know, get them into a recycling facility or a crucible and burn them into dust.
Liquid.
But then it's pulling the blade out for you.
Yeah, that's pretty sweet.
So yeah, the Hogue Expel Scalpel knife, man.
And it fits right in your chest pack even.
Everything is bright orange. I can't stress that enough. I'm still trying to figure out how to make this bright orange.
And this isn't
electrical tape.
I always carry at least one fixed blade knife as well, but I always like to have a scalpel knife too.
Mark, if there's one thing I've learned from you, it is 1 is none, 2 is 1. And that has proven to be advantageous for me, being a beneficiary of you having 2 things multiple times.
Mark,
I do bring, so I've done, in my opinion, a very good job, particularly on my backpack kit. There are a couple things that I'll carry multiples of. That'd be a headlamp and a knife. Those are things that I like to be a little bit redundant. And then on that one hunt that we went on, I did because
the redundant puffy, which I needed.
Puffy was.
I got soaking wet, and my puffy was soaking wet, and everything was soaking wet. And then Mark had this like dry. It's like it just came out of a dryer, like in our tent. This beautiful puffy
Still
jacket.
smelled like Mark.
It smelled exactly. Yeah. I put that in, and we had a nice evening in the tent then.
On any fly-in Alaska hunt, I don't care what time of year it is.
Double puff.
The propensity for getting wet
is high.
Yeah. And it's nice to have a backup puff.
Definitely.
So, awesome, guys. Well, this was super fun. Like I said in the intro, let us know in the comments below.
Yeah.
Do you want to see a round 2 gear and review? Maybe some more shooting-oriented stuff. This was very hunt-focused.
Yeah.
Let us know. Gentlemen, thank you so much.
Thank you, Mark.
For spending some of my money, Eric, and you out there, the listeners. We'll catch you on the next one.
See ya.
Bye.
There you have it, folks. Thank you very much for listening. As usual, give this video a like if you liked it, comment something below, and give us a subscribe to the Vortex Nation podcast channel. It would mean a lot to us. Also, why don't you give us a follow over on Instagram while you're at it, at Vortex Nation Podcast. We'd love to hear from you over there, and we'll keep you updated with all kinds of cool photos and videos from our adventures that we do here. Otherwise, we will see you on the next one. Thank you again. Happy hunting and shooting, everybody. Have a good one.